Hello everybody. I'm just wondering if this is actually working and how do I make my screen a little bit bigger? And let me try that if I can. Oh, there I am. Hey, how do you like that? Here I am. Now, thank you all of you for joining me tonight. I appreciate that you're here for our Pirkei Avot. Um, Last week I was trying to figure out why I have so much shadow on my face, and somebody said, "Why don't you try a backlight?" So I tried a backlight. It's actually, I have no place behind me to put a light, but I tried a front light. And the question is this better? Is this better? Or is this better? This is more natural because when the big light is on, I have to say it's boiling and broiling my eyebrows. So, well, you tell me. This reminds me of my eye doctor. Is this clearer or is this clearer? Or he would say, neither is clear. Neither is clear. Which one is better? And I would say, "No, neither is better because neither is clear." Anyway, so I'm going to try. I'm going to try this and see how it works. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me tonight here on Pirkei Avot Monday for a little bit of wit and wisdom for 30 minutes, which I've just chewed up 28 of these minutes with the lighting. But I hope it's okay, and I hope you're comfortable and feeling well throughout all of this COVID virus. I hope you're good, and I think we might as well begin. Tonight, actually, we're going to be covering two Mishnayot, which means two basic lessons tonight. We're really in the first chapter of six, but if you remember, several weeks ago, I decided I'm not necessarily going to go for covering a lot of material, but step by step for the lessons and teachings that I feel are uh, at least they touch me very, very deeply, and hopefully they will touch you as deeply as well. So here is teaching number one. It's done by a sage called Yosei ben Yoezer. Yosei ben Yoezer. Yosei, and then I'll say. Yosei ben Yoezer, Ish Tzreda Omer. He used to live in a city called Tzreda, I guess. And here's what he says. Yehi beitcha beit va'ad lechachamim. Let your house, let your home be a meeting place for scholars or sages. Your house should be a meeting place for people like that. He says also, "Veheve mitavek be'afar raglehem," also become dusty in the dust of their feet. Become dusty in the dust of their feet, especially if you're in Springfield. And then the third thing he says, "V'havi shoteh bitzama et divrehem," and you should drink with great enthusiasm, with great thirst, all of their words. So he has like a three-part teaching. Number one, let your home be a meeting place for scholars. Invite scholars into your home. Number two, become dusty in the dust of their feet, which we'll find out really what that means. And number three, drink their words like a thirsty person drinks water. So let's try to understand exactly what that means. What does that means? So the first part, he says, let your home be a meeting place for sages. So what does that mean to say our commentaries, that the standards in your home should be such that scholars would be comfortable? Now, does that mean seating? You should have nice seats, a nice chaise lounge, a couple of comfy chairs. Is that what they mean by making your home comfortable for scholars? Or perhaps they mean, let your house be the type of a house where, if you're hosting a scholar, you wouldn't be embarrassed to have them at your home. You wouldn't be embarrassed. You'd be good, you'd be comfortable, it's fine. What would cause embarrassment when you were thinking of having a scholar at your house? Well, you want to look around. Is everything okay? Are all the mezuzahs up? Everything fine? Do we have kosher food? Is everything up to the standards of this scholar that's coming to our house? The bottom line is really that a person, when they invite a scholar, somehow their spiritual life until the scholar shows up could be a week. They're going to come in a week or so, 2 weeks. And many people's spiritual lives would kick up a notch when they know that somebody like Rabbi or Mrs. X is coming to visit and coming to teach, perhaps. they're going to kick up their spiritual lives a little bit. Maybe that's what the rabbis mean. Let your house be wide open to have scholars and sages come in, men and women. I think they also meant, because I've got a couple of examples of this, they also meant that when you have great people in your home, it's going to be like an intimate kind of a gathering. Intimate. It's not a whole lot of people. And to see and hear and learn from a scholar in a very intimate setting is very different than seeing the scholar at a podium with 500 other people or 300 other people. It's just a whole different ballgame when you have them right next to you, when they're sharing the same coffee and tea and cake. That intimate setting is going to create a whole lot of closeness. And really, what's going to happen is the scholar, whoever it is kind of going to hang their hair down because they're not speaking to tons of people. And that's good for your relationship with whoever the scholar or the teacher is. The rabbis also think that you can learn a lot just by watching somebody who is a scholar, a sage, men, women, people who are righteous. You can learn a lot just by watching them, and some say even more you can learn than just hearing them. Watch what they do. Watch how they treat each other. Watch how they thank the host. Watch the way they handle their napkin. Watch the way they drop it, and all these different kinds of things. You may think this is silly. Maybe it is. But the idea is that when you have these kind of people in your home, it really changes one's life in a very, very positive and spiritual way. So when I was in Baltimore at one of the congregations there that I served for about 7.5 years, very, very beautiful, we used to have a once a month living room learning. Is that something? Once a month, I would invite a speaker and they would come to somebody's living room. People would always offer their living room every month, different people. They would buy nice snacks and nashes and all that kind of stuff. And we would be there for about 2 hours. Whoever I invited would speak. Nice discussion, great learning session, very, very intimate. Sometimes we had 10 people, sometimes we had 50, but 50 is even more intimate than 200. And it was really, really nice, and people appreciated. And if they knew the person, they loved getting to know the person a little bit better right at their elbow. And it's not like, yards and hundreds of yards away on a synagogue podium or in a lecture hall. So that's a very, very beautiful thing. I remember one time my wife and I had a group of friends, a few families, and we created what we called a chavura. We created a nice, intimate group of families that would be with each other for simchas and go here and go there and go to each other at bar, bat mitzvah, weddings, whatever. Um, and we also decided we would invite once a month, here you go again, once a month, a scholar to come and speak to us for a couple of hours. It was very, very lovely. One night we had somebody who we knew, and we knew his connection to his father. And during his lesson, he always kept on saying, and regarding this, my father would say X. A couple of minutes later, blah, blah, blah. And regarding this, my father would always add by saying this and that. So after a while, when he kept on saying my father, somebody finally said, by the way, who is your father? You keep on mentioning your father. And he says, oh, my father is Rabbi Steinsaltz. Now, if you've never heard the name Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, his family at that time lived in Baltimore. They now live in Israel. Rabbi Steinsaltz, he translated the entire Talmud, which was published by Random House, not a Jewish publication society, Random House. And the last of those volumes, I think, was given over to the Library of Congress not too long ago. Anyway, about Rabbi Steinsaltz, it was said, Newsweek magazine called him something they'll never call me, the mind of the millennium. Okay? Everybody around the table knew exactly who Rabbi Steinsaltz was. And when they heard him say, oh, my father, he's Rabbi Steinsaltz, it was almost like watching the Danny Thomas show. I don't know if you remember this, where if he heard some amazing news in the middle of a coffee sip, he would, that's what pretty much everybody did. This is the son of the mind of the millennium. It's fun. It's intimate. He spoke a little bit about his father, stories that you wouldn't normally hear. So that's the idea of let your home be a meeting place for the sages. It's intimate, it's spiritual, it's lovely, it's beautiful. And everybody who's coming to that scene is going to kick their spirituality up a notch or two or even more because of that experience. Rabbi Yosei ben Yoezer also says, become dusty at the dust of their feet. So what does that mean? It means to say that, for example, if you're walking on a dirty road and you're walking behind somebody, the person in front of you is likely to kick up all kinds of dust as they're walking because it's a dusty, unpaved kind of a road. So what the teaching might be telling us is follow the wise very, very closely, and you can gain from the dust that they kick up. What does that mean? You can learn from their wisdom. It doesn't even have to be a sand avalanche of wisdom. You can learn from like the tiniest speckles of wisdom, how they talk, their gestures, what they say, how they do things. You can learn from all of that. And that, the commentators say, is compared to like dust. Just like dust can land on you and it's just little particles, so too, if you follow the great sages, the great minds, the great scholars, men and women, you will also end up with the dust that they kick up as they're walking, meaning as they're learning or as they are studying. Another commentator said, back then, whenever then was, thanks for not asking, back then a teacher would sit on a chair and all of the students would not sit on chairs. The custom was that all of the students would sit on the floor. And the scholar wouldn't necessarily always wear shoes, might be a sandal. They would take off the sandals to be more comfortable. So basically, another thought that this teaching is telling us is that be up close. When the scholar is teaching, be up close as you can, so you can kind of get the dust even from their feet. And it's a way of saying sit up close. A lot of people, for example, they come to a lecture, they're in the back row for one reason or another. They're in the fifth row. I remember going to something in Baltimore in 1993. It was called Success 93. Big names. I can't even remember them, but big, big names. Willard Scott. There's a big name. Anyway, Paul Harvey. That's a good name. And now you know the rest of the story. Big names. I got a ticket. I bought a ticket in almost close to the stage. And for some reason, I sat in row 2. And I said to myself, why am I not sitting in row 1? And then I reminded myself, well, before I came to Baltimore, I was an associate rabbi for many years. And associate rabbi is kind of number 2. And that's probably why I sat in row number 2. I immediately, after realizing that, moved up to row number 1. And I literally sat at the dust of the feet of these amazing, worldwide famous speakers. So when you're up that close, you can feel their aura. And to be spat upon by Paul Harvey is really an amazing honor. Thank God it did not happen. Willard Scott, it's a whole other story. Anyway, I think that's what the teaching is to be that close, to be so close to the dust that even little speckles of what they've got to teach are going to so affect you because they are sages, they're scholars, and they have what to say, they have what to offer. Then the third part of this teaching, drink their words with thirst. In other words, feel parched that you don't hear those kinds of words that often. Take in the words of the scholars, men and women. I'm not telling you what kind of scholars, but people who are recognized as people who know. We're talking here in a Jewish context, but it could be anybody in any context. People who know, people who understand, people who are well versed and educated in certain subjects and certain topics. Soak in their words like if you don't soak in their words, you're just going to pass out. Just like somebody who's very, very thirsty. If they what do thirsty people say? Oh my God, if I don't get a glass of water now, I'm just going to drop right here. And Rabbi Yosei ben Yoezer is saying, uh, listen, this is what we need to do. We need to feel about Jewish education, Jewish knowledge, Jewish scholarship. We want to soak it in just like we were uh, thirsty, thirsty, and we can't live another second without having a cup of water, or in this case, a cup of wisdom, a cup of knowledge, a cup of spirituality. This reminds me, by the way, of a great, great woman who passed away a few years ago, and her name was Rebbitzin Esther Youngrice. The reason I think of her is because I think about 44, 45 years ago, she recognized that there are many Jewish people, young, older, whoever they are, many, many Jewish people who are thirsty for Jewish spirituality, thirsty for Jewish spirituality. And what did she do? She booked Madison Square Garden, very famous address in New York City, downtown. She booked it for a special night of spiritual consciousness raising. She had a band. People were singing songs. She had a message. And she was hoping that a few people will come to Madison Square Garden. In the end, 20,000 hungry and thirsty Jewish souls came to Madison Square Garden for that very first event that was run by Rebbitzin Esther Jungreis of blessed memory in an organization called Hineni, Here I Am. And she tapped in at that time to a movement called the Baal Teshuvah movement, the movement of returnees to Jewish roots, people who wanted to return to Jewish knowledge, Jewish practice, Jewish spirituality, not Buddhism, but Jewish. Let's do Jewish. And she tapped into that entire movement at that time, 40, 45 years ago, might have been more. I don't remember. But Rebbitzin Esther Jungars was an amazing person because through the books that she's written a few, you can see she understood that there was a hunger and a thirst for this kind of knowledge and this kind of spirituality, that people were really hungry and thirsty for it. So, who was going to come? What was she hoping for? 100? I guess if she booked Madison Square Garden, she was hoping for more than that, but that was an incredible thing. Go on YouTube and see if you can find Rebbitzin Jungreis, Jungreis, at Madison Square Garden. There might still be a video clip of that entire phenomenal, amazing, groundbreaking kind of a meeting. I think of a couple as well who I think used to live in America and now live in Israel, in the Jerusalem area. They are known as Rabbi and Mrs. Henny and Mordechai Machlis, Machlis. Rabbi Henny and Mordechai Machlis. Henny, unfortunately, passed away a few years ago. She should rest in peace. And her husband, I found this incredible when I first heard about it. They used to host, on the average, 100 people, 100 people every Shabbat meal. Sometimes it was 60, sometimes it was 125. Every Shabbat meal, they hosted dozens and dozens of people. People they knew, people they never met, people they don't know. Who were these people? These were people, they found out, who came for all kinds of reasons. All kinds of reasons. Basically, these were people who were hungry and thirsty for a Jewish thought, a Jewish idea, a kind word from other Jews, people who might have been marginalized as Jews because they were not as religious or observant as other people in their family and they felt abandoned. So Henny and Mordechai Machlis, can you imagine that? To invite that many people, it was an open house. People came in. They came in, they stayed, they would return, they got letters. It was incredible. So that's the idea of feeling as a Jew or whatever religion you may be if you're watching, to feel like you are so hungry and thirsty for the word, logos, something like not Legos. You're parched. You're parched to hear that. And if you can get it in your synagogue, your community, a lecture hall, JCC, whatever, great. But we're reminded that it could be even better to invite somebody like that who's got that potential to really move you spiritually into your home. And that's likely to be an even greater kind of an experience that you will never, ever forget. So that was teaching number one. So we have a few minutes for teaching number two. I'll throw also a three-parter. This is a different Yosei. So I'll say, Yosei ben Yochanan, Ish Yerushalayim Omer, a man of Jerusalem, used to say, Yehi beitcha patuach lervacha, let your house be wide open. Maybe not in these days, because you want everything that was there before to still be there after your house is wide open. But we'll discuss what he's saying. Let your house be wide open to others. V'hiyu einayim aniyim. I'm sorry. V'hiyu aniyim b'nei veitecha. Let the people in your household be also the poor. Let poor people also be members of your household. And then here's controversy. If you ever wanted controversy, here it is. The bomb is ready to go off. Are you ready? I hope you're ready. Got your seatbelt? Here's the third part of his lesson. Ve'al tarbeh sicha im ha'isha. Do not chatter too much with women. All right, let me just cover my ears as the bomb just went off. Don't talk too much with women. Okay, did it go off? Is everybody okay? All right, we'll have to understand, what does that mean? Is that an insult? Is that a slur against women? Is that some Orthodox male rabbi giving a snub to women? Don't chat too much with them. Don't chatter too much with women, because you know where that'll get you. We have to understand, what does that mean? And we're going to understand it, and I think you'll appreciate the meanings that I'm bringing to the table on this. So again, this Rabbi Yosef ben Yochanan, let your house be wide open to others. Let the poor people be members of your household, and don't overly chatter with women. What a nice word that I found, to overly chatter. Okay, so what does it mean? Have your door wide open to others. It means that you should be comfortable to have guests of all sorts. Henny, she should rest in peace, and her husband Mordechai Machlis. I read an article about them on Aish.com. The wide variety of people that ended up in their home, Jewish, non-Jewish, Muslim, evangelical, you name it. And they all felt home in that house. Can you believe that? How do you even achieve that? That to me is just an amazing achievement. So keep your door wide open. It doesn't mean necessarily don't ever lock your door. It just means, in a theoretical, proverbial sense, but in a real sense as well, be the kind of a home that is wide open. Everybody would feel comfortable in it. Everybody would feel at home in your wide open home. Wouldn't it be nice if people would meet people who have no place to go for a meal on Shabbat, a Jewish holiday, a Jewish day of commemoration? They're looking for a meal. Wouldn't it be nice if people would say, oh, you want a nice meal? Even if you haven't been invited, but you're always welcome as a guest, go to the fill in the blank home. Go to the Adler home. Their door is wide open. You'll love it. You'll feel at home. You'll feel so special. And I think that's the idea. Just like Abraham had a tent that was open on all four sides, welcoming, come on in, sit down, happy to have you, be our guest, just don't make a mess. That's what we're all asking you. So we have very dear friends. I don't want to mention them but if they're watching, they know who they are. We have very, very dear friends who have a card. It's like a business card. And whenever they go to a supermarket, I've seen this, so I know it's true. When they go to a supermarket and they see people that they haven't met in their neighborhood supermarket, called a makolet, like a small super, and they see people in that neighborhood supermarket that they've never met, they are ready with business cards that they carry on them to give to those people. And it says on the business card, please join us for a Shabbat meal. Here's our address. Here's how you can reach us during the week if you want to come and let us know you're coming. Please come. Can you believe that? I mean, where else do you find that kind of openness and graciousness? Just, please come. Come for a meal. I'm trying to think. There's a comedian named Sebastian Maniscalco. Are you familiar with him? Uh, Great. He's one of the top comedians right now. I think he's Italian, Sebastian Maniscalco. He has this great routine about how people used to enjoy company. They used to enjoy company when they came over, and now, God forbid, if the doorbell rings, everybody's hiding under the sofa. People are going into the kitchen. The head of the house, whoever it is telling everybody to stay low. Maybe somebody's got a gun or something. But this is a whole other idea that your house should be wide open for all kinds of people. Uh, then his other teaching is let the poor be members of your family. So who are the poor? They're very often the homeless, helpless, hopeless. These are often people who have been on the margin and the periphery of society, and they just can't get in. They're always on the side. They just can't get in. So what is this great rabbi, this great teaching? He says, these people who are on the margins all the time, welcome them into your home, but even more, if you need to have hired help and you have to hire Jewish poor, if you can, hire the Jewish poor, give them a shot, give them an opportunity, a way to make a living, a way to remain dignified by having a job, by having work. So the word for a poor person is ani, which is with an ayin, if you're familiar with the Hebrew alphabet, which sounds very much like the word ani, which is Hebrew for me. So the words sound exactly the same. It's the same word. Ani, the poor, ani, me. And it's a way of suggesting, I think, that, oh, the poor, have them in my home. They're going to come, they're going to stay in my home for 5 weeks. They're going to come back every time. You know, that ani, that poor, could be ani. At the snap of a finger, that could be me. That poor person, the destitute. I got a lot of bucks now. Got a beautiful home, couple of cars, lots of treasures, beautiful jewelry, everything I need. But you know, and I know, my dear friends, all you need is for something to happen, and boom, all of that can disappear in a snap. So bring in the poor as part of your household. They've been on the margins for too long, and you could be that poor person. As they say, there but for the grace of God go I. I don't know what I've just quoted. I know it's a popular phrase. Ani, the poor, can be ani. It can be me in a snap. The last part is don't chatter too much with women. Oh, gee, I see that our time has just about run out. So I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Uh, I don't know for how many of you that was like a big bomb. Why is a sage teaching that you shouldn't talk too much with women? What's that all about? So I'll offer you the way I understand it. First of all, could it mean that this Rabbi Yosei really feels like you should not be, as a Jewish male, should not be talking too much to women? By the way, how strange it is that a teaching of Pirkei Avot, like this one, is very restricted to talking to a man, because it's not talking to women, not chattering with other women. It's talking about men do not overly chatter with other women. So what is this? Is this like a typical Orthodox bias against women? The first time I read it, that's what it sounded like to me, until I looked at some of the commentaries. And here we'll just touch on a couple because I know that it's almost 9 o'clock or 2 o'clock, wherever you are. And I don't like to go over. So the word sicha, that's what it says in the teaching. Al tarbes sicha im haisha. Don't over chatter with women. Sicha, chatter. But it doesn't need to mean chatter. It can also mean to talk, to discuss, to chat, to converse, to exchange. Now, some people may say that this is a good idea to keep distance from women, but it sounds insulting and it sounds devaluing. And some people say, it's a good idea not to overly chat with women, because if you do, you might get to be a little too chummy with woman or women. You might get a little too friendly, a little too chummy, and that's not necessarily going to get to a good place, if you hear what I'm saying. you're going to risk something in the life of you and your wife. If you get overly chummy and overly friendly and overly chatty, meaning you let your guard down after a while, this can end up in a very, very difficult place. And it has the potential of undermining the values of your house. We've been talking so much about house. Let your house be open. Let your house be a place where scholars can gather. Let your house be a place where the poor can come and feel comfortable. This whole house can be undermined by too much uncareful and careless chatter with women. You can unravel a cohesive home by doing too much talking, letting your guard down, etc., with women. So maybe Rabbi Yosei is actually got a good idea here. Rein it in. Be careful. Be aware of unwanted chemistries that might develop because you've been overly chatterous. It could lead to the ruin of your family life. This frivolous atmosphere that you have unwittingly created by being overly chatterly. Overly chatterly. That's really interesting. Reminds me of a book title, Not For Now. So here's the bottom line. Here's how I see it, and then we will end and wish each other a good day. There's a great commentary called the Chazon Ish, and another great commentary named Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch. And here's what they say. The word sicha has the connotation of light chatter, light stuff. How's the weather? Small talk. It has the connotation of small talk. And if so, what is the teaching? Do not have too much small talk with your wife or with a woman, but specifically your wife. Do not have too much small talk with your wife. Why? Because your wife is capable of much more weighty discussion than small talk. Hi, honey. So what'd you make today? Hi, honey. What was the highest temperature today? Hi, honey. Have you seen my slippers? Hi, honey. There are some people who feel that their wives or women in general just don't have the intellectual capacity to get into deep, serious, weighty, heavy, consequential conversations. There are people like that. Anybody here? There are people who feel that women are just not capable of much more than that. So what is this Rabbi Yosei teaching us? They are. And that's why I'm teaching, don't be overly sicha with your wife and with women. Don't be overly light and fluffy in your conversation. They can handle it. They have the intellectual capacity to handle the deepest conversations. So if all you're going to do is like light chatter, fluffy talk, that's an insult when they can handle and they're much capable of so much more than that. That's the insult. The insult is when you treat them in a light and fluffy way by just saying a few cheap kind of chatter or things. Because to sit down and talk with my wife about philosophy, forget it. No, that's exactly what Rabbi Yosei is saying. Don't treat your wife that way. Treat your wife and other women in a way that indicates you know they are smart, they're intelligent, they're intellectual, and extremely capable, at least as men, of deep, heavy, consequential discussions. Wow. Okay. Let me know how you feel about all of this, what you think about the lessons. Be very happy to hear from you. I want to thank you again for coming. I want to thank you for joining me this evening. I want to wish you a great week. This coming Friday is Yom Yerushalayim, the day that Jerusalem, once again during the Six-Day War, became a unified city once again, once and for all, the once and eternal capital of the city of Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the land of Israel. Thanks for coming tonight, dear friends, or today. And we'll see you, God willing, either next Monday night for Pirkei Avot or Wednesday night for 5 Derech Eretz lessons in the Torah portion. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.